One of the things that I really like about Hanoi is the green space. Not just the well-known places, but the many parks that make living here pleasant. This happens to be Linen Park. Yeah, that linen. There's much to like about Vietnam and its capital, but to understand the place, you can't ignore the drama and suffering the country has endured. For starters, you can pay a visit to Ba Dinh Square, home to the National Assembly, the Presidential Palace, the stilt house where modern Vietnam's father lived, and not least of all, the mausoleum where his body is displayed.
It was on this square on September 2nd, 1945, that a young Ho Chi Minh read Vietnam's Proclamation of Independence, declaring the end of the dynasty at the end of Japan's occupation of this country during World War II. That's regarded as a seminal moment in modern Vietnamese history, even though Vietnam would fight against the French for a bloody 9 years thereafter. As you can tell, I'm in a sea of school children who've come here, as they do regularly, to visit the tomb. Hi. Hello. Hello. Ho Chi Minh died in 1969, 6 years before the former North Vietnam ended America's tragic adventurism here, rolling up the puppet government of South Vietnam and reuniting the country in the manner he envisioned. The mausoleum was ready for him in 1975, the year of reunification, and as you can tell, its style is drawn heavily from that of Lenin's tomb in Moscow, although with a few Vietnamese flourishes like the slanted roof. This mausoleum is open every morning except Mondays, and you can do as I've just done, and that is arrive early. I would strongly recommend it. Come by 8. You'll stand in line. In my case, I stood in line for, as I mentioned, an hour and 15 minutes, but I'm told that later during the day, the lines can be horrendous. There's no pausing once inside. You walk up some stairs, turn to the left, and up some more stairs and circle back into the central chamber. The body, after all of these years, is in remarkable condition. There's a light overhead inside the sarcophagus, if you will. It's glass enclosed that shines down on his face and torso. You merely walk around it on 3 sides and exit quietly. There's no folding of the hands. There's of course no picture taking, no chewing of gum. There's a list of what one would expect to be the ordinary prerequisites. The time inside the chamber is probably about a minute and a half. The beautiful presidential palace, which you see over my shoulder, was built by the French. It was once the governor's palace for Indochina during colonial days. There's very little access up close to the presidential palace. You can't really view it from the front because it's cordoned off. There's a beautiful fountain in front. These lovely grounds, which besides being just packed with school children, resemble a botanical garden. We're approaching a pond famous as a place where the late Ho Chi Minh enjoyed reflecting as well as fishing. We will soon be at the Stilt House, where the North Vietnamese leader preferred to live.
Hello.
Hello, how are you? What is your name?
My name is Juan.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you. Thank you. Ron. Ron. It's really overwhelming to be greeted so enthusiastically by these kids. But I got to tell you, it's also a little tiring after a while because you can only say hello so many times before you begin to wish you didn't have to say it again. Hello, everybody.
Ông ơi, cho cháu lên tivi. Hello.
Tại vì là muốn là các bạn nhìn thấy bác ở đâu đó.
Only brief glimpses of the Stilt House. At least you can walk up the stairs and look inside Ho Chi Minh's small study and his adjacent bedroom. It's not very large. It doesn't take long to walk by, but there's no lingering because of the crowds. I'm here on the edge of the French Quarter in a small family-owned restaurant that's been around for years and is known for its bun cha. That's the traditional grilled pork and noodle dish that's considered to have originated here in Hanoi. Since 2016, it's much more famous for something else. It was then President Obama sat down to eat with the late celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain to have bun cha with a cold Hanoi beer. And of course, that's what I'm having. In fact, the menu here describes it as the Obama special.
Besides photos of the famous meal, the table and all its utensils are preserved behind plexiglass in an upstairs dining room.
This place has, besides serving great food, become a tourist attraction in its own right. In Hanoi, it's even referred to sometimes as Bun Obama. Well, they do give you the Hanoi beer in a can. But it is, as advertised, cold. And as Hanoi beer is known to be, it is also very good. As is this bun cha. I've read several pieces about this place over the years, and inevitably people will be critical about things. I know one meme for a while was that the place had sort of abandoned its service and was running sort of a mill to just turn over tables in here. I can't say whether that's true or not. I certainly don't feel rushed eating here. But I can say one thing. The food is as I remembered it when I ate here 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, whenever it was. It's excellent. I'm here on the edge of the French Quarter at a place popularly known during the Vietnam War as the Hanoi Hilton. But it has nothing to do with the hotel chain. Rather, it's the nickname that American prisoners of war who were kept here gave to Ho Lo prison. And the name pretty much stuck, for Americans at least. Today it's a museum. And before I go inside, just let me tell you that most of the prison was demolished in the 1990s. There are a couple of mid-rise apartment buildings as well as some commercial buildings standing on the former prison grounds. But the guardhouse section of the prison was preserved, and that's what you see. Many people associate this place with the American war against Vietnam, but it's much older than that. It was built by the French in the 1890s. And it became notorious as a place where Vietnamese political prisoners were kept. I'm in the dungeon area of this prison, so-called. It looks as though it was at one time an area for solitary confinement. During the days when the French operated this prison, you can only imagine how dark it was then. It's dark now. Even darker if you were waiting on the guillotine. It's actually very creepy in here, but then if it weren't, it wouldn't be a prison. Most of what you see in here is, of course, focused on the long era of French occupation that ended in 1954 and the alleged atrocities committed by the French against the Vietnamese people here. Americans began to be held here in the early 1960s, and as the decade progressed, more of them were brought here from other POW prison camps that were consolidated to make it more efficient for the then North Vietnamese government to oversee them. The most famous of the U.S. POWs held here was the late U.S. Senator John McCain, who was a young man, was a Navy combat pilot. His plane was shot down over a lake not far from Hanoi. Of the 5.5 years McCain spent as a POW, the bulk of it was spent here. And as you can see, his Navy flight uniform as well as his parachute is preserved and prominently displayed here. McCain, by the way, was among the U.S. politicians who helped normalize U.S.-Vietnamese relations after the war and came to be highly regarded by the government of Vietnam. Today, Vietnam and the U.S. have long enjoyed cordial relations, and for many years now, the Vietnamese people have been welcoming their former French and American invaders as if the wars never happened.
Yes.
Are you from Vietnam?
Yes.
I knew that.
Where are you from?
I'm from the United States. USA. America.
Yes.
Vietnam is demographically young and getting younger. People here have bigger fish to fry. Increasingly, the past is in the rearview mirror.